Can you guys hear that okay?
You ever find yourself in a place that you don't know what to say? And things I depended on were gone. I realized I couldn't do it on my own. I used to want to understand your plan. Now all I want to see is your hand. My heart is open so wide, even though there's so much pain inside. As I'm on this journey, I need you to help me, Lord, help me, yeah. And I know I will be alright. I need you to help me, God. When I'm tired of the load I must bear, you let me know that you're still there. 'Cause you're the strength in my weakness. You're my word when I'm speechless. Oh, God, give me faith to see where you're taking me. So when I'm afraid, I still believe. Please hear the pain in my prayer. Let me know you're listening. Really care. I'm on this journey. Help me. Oh, and I know you'll be right there. Anybody wake up? Have you ever been in a time of need and you really need somebody to help you along the way? I know somebody might be right there when you need it. Answer your prayer. All you gotta do is call on it. All you gotta do is wait on him. He will. He will. Help is on the way. Yeah. He'll come rescue you. Don't give up on God. He won't give up on you, no. All my help comes from Him, yeah. I need your help. He'll come see about you. He'll come rescue you. He's waiting on you to call on Him.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. All right. Now, how can I share my PowerPoint? Here we go. Okay. Can everybody see?
Yes.
Yes.
Hallelujah. That song just really gets me through. Whew. I just want to really just talk tonight. I just want to share some things that the Most High shared with me concerning Yasharel. And my topic tonight is called broken. So I want to give the Webster dictionary of broken. It says broken, violently separated into parts, shattered, not working properly, of land surface, being irregular, interrupted, or full of obstacles, violated by transgression, not kept or honored, made weak or infirm, cut off or disconnected, disunited by divorce, separation, or desertion of one parent, not complete or full. Then I'd like to give according to the Hebrew, Strong 7665, broken, pronounced shobar. It means abolish, break down, breaking in pieces, broken pieces, broken off, broken hearted, collapsed, crushed, demolished, destroyed, fractured, hurt, injured, pieces, placed, quenched, shattered or shattered, smashed or smashed, tore or torn down. That is broken up of the letters of the Shin, the Bet, the Vav, and the Resh. The Shin, teeth, eat, consume, destroy, bite, to, change, divide, press, or repeat. The Bet we know is the house and family. The Vav, the nail, the tent, peg, hook, to secure, connect, and Messiah. The Resh is the head and person, man, beginning, top, rule, inheritance, and possession. So when I put this together, it's amazing it's amazing how he has spoken to us, and we've never had a clue of what he was really saying. It said a destroyed or divided house or family that once was secure or connected to the Most High from the beginning has now affected their head or leader, their inheritance, and has lost their possession. You know, that word broken it means a lot to me because I know probably everybody on here has been broken. You can't be from Yasharel and not be broken. We've been broken for 400 years and counting. And so I wanted to just touch up a little bit on broken. And I want to start with broken mirrors. What does it mean to be broken? I have struggled with this for a long time, and probably like many of you, we do everything we can to cover our brokenness. We learn to glue our shattered glass mirrors back together and teach ourselves how to look through a cracked reflection. We learn to ignore the cracked lines that distorts the clear vision of what we see. We have embraced pagan holidays such as Halloween's, where they teach us to dress up in costumes, but we can't spell costume without the word cost. Ask yourself, what has it cost you? Hollywood or Hollyweird has taught us to wear these character masks pretending to be something we're not. And then we begin to wear the mask all year round. Too often our women put on makeup to cover up imperfections that the world have conditioned them to feel ashamed. We learn how to purchase the best designing clothes, as well as kill each other for the latest shoes like red bottoms, Jordans, etc. And then we layer them with all the bling we can afford and cannot afford. We rock the latest hairstyles while anticipating for the next edition of Style magazine to tell us the latest fashion and how to present ourselves. But the problem is usually when the ones that bring us these latest styles are the ones who have used these apparatuses to cover up their own insecurities. Satan and the world have figured out how to tap into our insecurities via media, television, radio, while drawing us into separate communities by promising false opportunities. Matthew 25:12, Yahushua states, knowing their thoughts, he said to them, every kingdom divided against itself is laid waste, and no city or house divided against itself will stand. We learn to speak intellectual with proper intonations and clarification in order to blend in with the elite. We like to convince ourselves we are whole, so we learn how to fake it till we make it. Most people send a representative of themselves, leaving their true, authentic self behind. But who are you when you take off your mask? The Hebrew nation, since coming to this country, have had more facelifts than Little Kim, Michael Jackson, and Vivica Fox put together. We have went from Hebrews to Negroes, to color, to Blacks, to Afro-Americans, and now African-Americans. And every time we change our name, we cause separation within our own community at home. It is not by happenstance that we were brought to this lawless country, and not because of our brokenness, but we were brought to this country because our desire to be broken. In Matthew 6:21, it states, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be." Sometimes we can become immune to our pain, our insecurities, while our brokenness become our fetishes. We make choices that separate us and lead us further away from the Most High. Our desire became broken back in the Garden of Eden, with Adam and Eve willingly made the choice to disobey the commandments of the Most High. At that point, the oneness would take on a new identity. Our people would forever be bound in confusion and insecurities. The choice that was made in the garden would connect us to Hasatan in ways we could never imagine. It would open up a portal that would lead to the destruction of mankind itself. Hasatan, the radical. When Hasatan, who is also known as the fallen angel or a rebellious radical, entered the garden, he introduced man and woman to what would be a delusion of their independent freedom, which allowed them to think more highly of themselves instead of focusing on the Most High. Hasatan's influence on Adam and Eve would forever leave floating thoughts of sin in the midst or in the minds of mankind, what I like to call free radicals. Likened to free radicals in our physical bodies, Hasatan uses our hidden desires to lure us into sin. Then these demonic spirits from the outside attach themselves to our free radical thoughts in our minds, which they become the host that moves these demonic spirits from a thought to an action, and then ultimately ending in a sinful nature. Once we have invited Hasatan in our minds, he has total access to our bodies and use them like the Holiday Inn Hotel, inviting more demonic spirits of all kinds to take residency. What are free radicals and why are they bad spiritually and physically? You know, in my study, he showed me something, how to correlate two things at one time. And they both operate the same way. So when he was teaching me about these free radicals, these thoughts, because sometimes we can sit idle mind and our thoughts, we start thinking of things that are not Yahweh. And we sit back and we find ourselves wondering, how did we get in this position? But let me explain a little bit about free radicals. Free radicals have a detrimental effect on the body. They are known to affect the immune system or our spiritual essence by damaging the cell and its components, DNA and proteins, causing mutations or other deadly spirits, which ultimately results in different conditions. Free radicals are highly reactive and unstable molecules, atoms, or Adam, that are produced in the body naturally as a byproduct of metabolism or oxidation, or by exposure to toxins in the environment, likened to sin. And ultraviolet UV lights, which we learn in 2 Corinthians 11:14, Satan himself is transformed into the angel of light. Free radicals have a lifespan of only a fraction of a second, or a vapor, as in James 4:14. But during the time, they can damage cancer or cause one to live in a sinful life. Antioxidants in the food or the word of the Most High, if we consume, can neutralize the unstable molecules, reducing the risk of damage and bringing us in an upright position with the Most High. Just like free radicals, sin can cause illness, destroy cells, or even put us in a cell. It is an unstable condition that leads to lust, envy, perversity, adultery, drunkenness, etc. Or we can become intoxicated in sin. But the Most High tells us to come out. In Revelation 18:3-5, Babylon is fallen. We can see it every day. As we look around, we see Babylon fallen. All the nations have drunk the wine of the passion of her immorality. The kings of the earth were immoral with her, and the merchants of the earth have grown wealthy from the extravagance of her luxury. Then I heard another voice from heaven say, "Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins or contract any of her plagues. For her sins are pulled up to the Shemaim, and the Most High has redeemed her iniquities, remembered her iniquities. In order for something to come out, it means something had to go in, which leads me to one of the most interesting stories in this book. It was a story that I could relate to, because when you've had some hurdles, some difficulties, some destruction, when you've been in the dark for long periods of time, when you've been have your cave experience, I might say, this story kind of resonated with me, even as a young man, because I couldn't quite understand how could one man have that many spirits at one time and still survive. But see, that's the whole object of us coming in this country. And that's the whole object of us taking on their mannerisms, because it allowed us to host spirits that we are not supposed to have in us, because we allow those spirits to gravitate to our free radicals that goes on in the back of our mind. So I want to go right now to the story of Legion. We're coming out of Mark 5, 1 through 20. I just really want to talk about this for a minute, because there's a lot of us that are dealing with Legion situations. That's why it's important for us to know each other, to love on each other. Because if we're going to do the same things as we did where we just came from, then it defeats the purpose of why we're here. So I want to go into Legion for a minute, then I'm going to elaborate a little bit after I'm done, if you bear with me. And they came over into the other side of the sea, into the country of the Gadarenes. And when Yahusha had come out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwellings among the tombs, and no man could bind him, no, not with chains, because he had been often bound with fetters and chains, and the chains had been plucked asunder by him, and the fetters broken in pieces. Neither could any man tame him. And always night and day, he was in the mountains, in the tombs, crying out and cutting himself with stones. But when he saw Yahusha from afar, he ran and fell on his knees and worshiped him. And he cried out with a loud voice and said, "What have I to do with you, Yahusha, son of the Most High? I implore you by the Most High that you do not torment me." For he said, "Come out of him. Come out of the man, unclean spirit." Then he asked him, "What is your name?" And he answered, saying, "My name is Legion, for we are many." Also the demons begged Yahusha that he would not send them out of the country into the abyss. Now a large herd of pigs was feeding there near the mountains. So all the demons begged him, saying, "Send us into the pigs that we may enter them." And Yahusha gave them permission to leave the man. And the unclean spirits went out and entered into the pigs. And the herd ran violently down a steep place into the sea. They were about 2,000. And then they were choked in the sea. So the herders who fed the pigs fled. And the herders told it to the city and to the country. And then the townspeople went out to see what had happened. You know how we get nosy, we got to go and check it out. So, and they came to Yahusha and seen him, that the possessed man with the devil and had the legions, sitting and clothed in his right mind. And they were afraid. And those who saw it, then how it happened to the demon-possessed man and about the swine, they began to plead with Yahusha to depart from their region. And when Yahusha come into the ship, and the man that was possessed with the devil begged him that he might go with him. However, Yahusha did not permit him. He said, "Go home to your friends and tell them the great things that the Most High has done for you, and how he has compassion on you." And he departed and began to publish in Decapolis how great things Yahusha had done for him. And all the men marveled. This story should resonate with me, but truthfully, it should resonate with everybody in this audience tonight. From the time we arrived to America or Babylon, we have been forced to transform into a piggy situation. Let's analyze this for a second. Even in this man's darkest hour, when others had given up on him, and it seemed he had no hope at all, when he was no longer on the deacon board or no longer invited to his friend's house or considered in the in crowd, somehow he pressed toward the mark. When he found himself in a tomb situation, the text said, immediately he met Yahusha in his unclean disposition and bowed down to worship him. Can you imagine the heaviness of all the proclivities? Sometimes you can't wait on Moray or Mora or the Mishpachah to give ear to your need. Sometimes you have to go directly on your knees, crying if need be, to the source that not only can hear you, but can meet you at your need. The text said, the man seen Yahusha from afar and bowed down to worship him. Even the demons inside of him could not stop his worship. Sometimes you got to carry him. No matter how dark you feel, how many dark situations you are in, sometimes you got to just pull, you got to scratch, you got to crawl, whatever it takes just to get to in his presence so you can worship him. This man had a legitimate problem that was being met with illegitimate solutions. You see, when people get tired of you and they don't want to deal with your issues, as humans, we have a tendency of avoiding each other or putting chains and boundaries on one another. Or we say, I'm praying for you and Godspeed. I don't want to hear that. We don't take the time to really investigate because truth is, we are powerless. And we truly don't believe in the power of the Most High. When we believe we can move anything, we ourselves are barely hanging on. So we put up good fronts that others might not see our own issues. So we highlight someone else's. But the text goes on to say, he would pluck off the chains and break the fetters in pieces. Sometimes our outside begins to reflect what's going on in the inside, which often shows our frustration and our anger because our needs are not being met. So when crying doesn't work, we tend to break things in pieces, like objects, even hearts, knowingly and unknowingly. It states, the man was in the mountain in tombs crying and cutting himself day and night. Can you imagine? See, if someone would have told him, or even had the faith of a mustard seed, they could have introduced him to Mark 11:23. Truly, I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be taken up and cast into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart or her heart, but believes that what he or she says is going to happen, it will be granted. You see, if he didn't just have a town full of people or a house full of people, but he had a town full of believers or an assembly full of believers, the situation would have been different. See, the Most High would have never had to cast demons off or cast them into the swine because the true believer's faith would have beat him to the punch. My question is, do you really believe? But here is the blessing part. Yahusha heard his cry when others ignored him. He heard it from afar. Aren't you glad he can hear our cry from a distance? Even the man spilled blood spoke to the Most High from the cuts he inflicted on himself that touched the ground. In Genesis 4:10, it says, Abel's blood spoke from the ground. The Most High hears, and it's not always from his ears. I digress. Then the demon spoke out of the man's mouth and said, what do you have to do with me, son of the Most High? Then Yahusha told the demons to come out of the man. It's ironic how many demons can speak from one man's mouth. And we wonder why we have such filthy mouths. And yet all the demons still had to acknowledge the Most High. In order for a demon to live, the environment must be filthy. And so the similarities between man and pig must have some type of correlation. Perhaps like a pig, man loves to run back and bathe in his own filth. See, the goal in America was to transform our hearts to pig. Knowing this would ultimately violate the Most High. You see, what happens when the demons are cleared, when the Most High clears us from our free radicals? What happens to the demons? In Matthew 12:43, it says, when an impure spirit comes out of the person, it goes through arid places, seeking rest and does not find it. Then it says, I will return to the house I left. Oh, on its return, it finds the house vacant, swept clean, and put in order. Then it goes and takes with it 7 other spirits more wicked than itself. And they go in and live there. And the final condition of that person is worse than the first. That is how it will be with this wicked generation. You see, when you leave these free radicals unchecked, it literally puts a vacant sign outside of our body, indicating that there is room for guests of any kind. It took me a while to understand this process, that when you have thoughts, how thoughts began to manifest and become real life. You know, sometimes you can be like, oh, I'm just thinking about that and leave it alone. No, sometimes you got to check that thing right then and there. Sometimes you got to put that word out. That's why the word should continually be in our mouths. Because if the word is in our mouth, that keeps the most Satan outside of our mouths. So sometimes you have to really say, you know what, let me bow down because my thoughts are not right now. I'm not thinking right. Sometimes I have those thoughts. It's like, you know, yeah, he's on that monkey mess, you know, but I have to check myself because I realize this. Our thoughts are not his thoughts, nor our ways are his ways. This is the intent of America, was to give us the heart of the pig. What do you mean by the heart of a pig? Well, something happened to me recently. And I was going to get some pizza, and I haven't been off pork for like over 30 years. And just so happened, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get up here. Jack's is my favorite pizza spot. So I go to Jack's, and I just so happened was talking to a Cody Tamika on the way. So I'm like, boy, she's like, man, that sounds good. I said, yeah. I said, I'll bring you a pizza. She was like, no, I'm trying to cut down, you know, on these meats. And I was like, well, okay, then I certainly don't want to interrupt that. So I get to Jack's. They go ahead and I get my order and my normal order. I mean, I've been ordering it from there forever. And I get my normal order and I get home and I'm with my mom. I'm like, okay, here, let's go and eat, get in here, get our plates. So I'm getting to eating and I take a few bites and I begin to sweat. And then I start feeling high. See, I know what it is to feel high. See, I'm not going to sit there and play with you. I know what it is to feel high. I've lived in the world. I've done my dirt. That's why it's so important to understand about this topic tonight. Because when you have a pig's heart, someone needs an operation. Someone needs to be gutted out. So as I sit there and I start eating the pizza and I start sweating and I start feeling the tension in my head, my eyes start feeling like they were getting watery. And I can tell they were starting to get red because I know the feeling. So I start getting really tired in my mind. And I'm like, what is going on? So my stomach started turning. And so I'm talking to my mom. I'm saying, I don't know what's going on. She's like, you all right? I'm like, I don't know. I'm starting to feel sick. I feel like I'm getting ready to throw up. And so I looked on it. I said, I looked in the pizza. So I pulled the pizza back. And when I looked at the pizza, they darn near gave me a meat lover pizza with ham, pepperoni. And at that moment, I had to run to the toilet and I had to get it out of me. That thing wore me out so much. I mean, when I say it hit every crevice of my body, it's like when sin hits us, it just saturates your whole body. It goes down through your veins. You can feel it. You know when you're feeling bad. You know when you're wrong. You know when you're off track because it gives us a feeling it's not right. Why? Because this is the temple of the Most High. And when something violates the temple of the Most High, you got to feel it. If you don't feel it, you better check your pulse. Because that thing started messing with me to the point where I took a blood pressure. I don't even take blood pressure. I took a blood pressure pill. I took Excedrins and I had to lay down and I was no good for the rest of the night. I had to shut my body down literally because what was inside of me was taking over me. I didn't know if I was going to have to take myself to the hospital. I prayed. It humbled me because it gave me that feeling of understanding how toxic the body can become when we allow certain things that we don't check. No matter if you trust somebody, you need to check them. Check and see what spirit you're working with. Check and see what meal's going down your throat. We have been doing really well as far as learning about these things, as far as what we should eat. But that just gave me a reminder why we have to continually seek Yah to repair us, to restore us. So, how do we start to repair? Good question. I'm glad you asked. Never forget. See, sometimes we have a tendency of forgetting. Yosha, Yasharel, I get it. Some of us are further along in this walk than others. And some of us are just getting started. And some may not know it all. I encourage you never to forget where you come from. Because when you forget, you're destined to return back to that spot. If you don't believe me, ask your ancestors who kept returning to their idol gods. And when they when they had the opportunity to walk with the Most High, you still kept going back to an idol God that can't do nothing for you. How they kept repeating slavery over and over again. What's different right now? What's different about this time? You can't expect to change if you fall back into the same habits that cost our ancestors. We ought to not think of ourselves higher than what we should. We should only be as high as the least in the kingdom. Do not start to disenfranchise yourself to those who know less, because you know what? The bottom line is you're here to help get someone along the way. I'm a military man. And the first thing they did, because you know what? The Most High has orders. That's why he has us with mores. He has us with mores because right now it's different from where we just came from. We came from a Christianity movement that was a top that people relied on. They didn't do no study. We didn't have to do no study because we just wanted to go and hear him to make us feel better. And then we can go home and sin and still feel okay with it. That's not good enough. That's not going to work no more. So when we sit back today, the difference between a church and the assembly, one has a dictatorship. Yasharel, he's preparing us. Why? Because he said you're an assembly. If you can't have an assembly unless you got people on the assembly line, that means everybody should know what to do and know their job. Because if you do your job, I do my job, then the job is getting done. So we have to remind ourselves why it's called an assembly. That means blade sharpen blade. When I was in the military, that's the first thing they teach you is how to prepare for war. See, he came as the lamb, but he's coming back as the lion. That means we should be preparing lions, not lambs. We don't have time to be sensitive right now. We have time to battle and get ready for this battle. We have time to blade sharpen blade, because you know what? If I'm in war with this guy right here or this woman right here, and we're in war, if you wasn't taught to use your gun and I got to depend on you for my back, we got a problem. So our job is to study. What I love about the Great Awakening, international now, is because right now I'm in a team, which I'm glad some of them have came out to visit, hallelujah, interdisciplinary. And what I love about this is Cody Rhonda, and how she kind of runs it. She kind of put us in a point where you're taking all these different divisions or different titles, be it like counselors or nurses or spiritual counselors, but you have all these teams that are migrating in one. And when we come together and we meet, it's about healing Yasharel. It's no agenda, no hidden agenda. It's healing Yasharel. It's literally saying, what do you have to bring to the table? And if we can take these things that we got to the table that we use so eloquently for the world, if we can take these things and bring them where it belongs, then we can heal each other. Because, the bottom line, that is our job. So I encourage you to not forget these African Americans, which are still our family. Don't forget, they were beaten, hung on trees, spit on, murdered, ostracized, shamed, sodomized, bucked, starved, raped, babies snatched out of mother's arms, diseased, murdered, talked about, imprisoned, divided, shot, limbs cut off, boys forced to sleep with their mothers and fathers forced to sleep with their daughters, as in animals, participate in slave masters' sex perversions, psychologically abused, muzzled, stripped out of our language, our culture, and our Most High, forced to bow down to other gods. When you are preparing for war, you are only as strong as your weakest link. Something simple he's always showed me. I've always loved the story of the ant. Proverbs 6:6-8. Go to the ant, O sluggard, consider her ways, and be wise. Without having any chief, officer, or ruler, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest. That means they don't waste time. They don't have to be directed to do something. They don't have to have somebody say, oh, sing, you should sing. Why aren't you singing? They don't need a cheerleading session, because when you got the mind of the Most High, you know your job. Our job is to make each other understand their job, to get them from this sick mindset that we have, to just knowing, hey, we can just do a little bit and everything's all right. The bottom line is, he said one thing in order for us to come together. He said, by this, all will know that you are my disciples, if you have the love for one another. That's John 13:35. It's all about the love, guys. It's all about how we treat each other. What makes us different than where we just came from? If they don't see it by our love for each other, I mean, we should spend quality time. We should always want to be in the word. We should, I mean, being in the assembly, we hear so much that it's like it keeps your mind focused where you have no time for distractions. When this become your primary thought, then you don't mind Zooming all day. You don't mind talking to your Codys and Ox. You don't mind hollering at your Moray and your Morah. You know why? Because this is what Mishpachah is. Don't just say it, because the things we say these days, family, is so underrated. Love, so underrated. Friends, so underrated. They have diluted these things now that they have no meaning whatsoever. What makes us different? What really makes us different? Besides I'm Hebrew, I'm Judah. Who cares? If your love is not there one to another, all that becomes irrelevant. And you know what? I got scriptures for you. I got scriptures. See, these are weapons of mass destruction. And I'm not going to hold you too much longer. In Ephesians 4:2, be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing one another in love. 1 Peter 4:8, above all, love each other deeply, because love covers a multitude of sin. We need it to be covered for the sins we have done. John 15:12, my commandment is this, love each other as I have loved you. John 4:16, and so we know and rely on love Yah has for us. Yah is love. Whoever lives in love lives in Yah, and Yah in them. Romans 12:10, be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourself. John 4:20, whoever claims to love Yah yet hates his brother or sister is a liar. You marinate on that. If you don't have love for your brothers and sisters, how dare you say you love the Most High? His whole soul mission was to teach us love as his father loved him and as he loved his father. Should be a reflection to love. Love should be the most dominant thing in your mind, no matter how somebody gets on your nerve. How can I love you out of that situation? How can I love you through that situation? If love is not on your mind, then who's on your mind? John 4:18, there is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. So I want to just continue a little bit and then I'm done. Solution. Let's talk about love real quick. The word used in Genesis 29:30 for Jacob loving Rachel more than Leah is that all-purpose word Ahavah, which in its root means I will give. Jacob Ahavah Rachel, but he Hovah Leah. He loved Leah only out of obligation. The test for Ahavah is simple. Do you want to do more for him or her than you want him or her to do for you? In his gematria, Ahavah is 13. The Aleph is 1, Hey equals 5, Bet equals 2, Hey equals 5, which equals to 13. When a man and a woman Ahavah each other, you have two Ahavahs, which is 13 plus 13 and equals 26. The name of the Most High also has the numerical value of 26. True love begins between a man and a woman, joins them with the Most High. Jacob loving Rachel and Rachel loving Jacob joined them to the Most High. Matthew 22:37-40. You shall love Ahavah, the Most High, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment, and the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love is a discipline. You must be reminded of it every day, and you must work it out, choose it, strive for it. End results, a treasure beyond all measure. Ahavah versus Hiybah. Now, we know that the Most High Ahavah uses, but we must return Ahavah to add 13. So that means when he gives his 13, we must add our 13 to equal to 26. That makes a complete love. Love is not complete until it's returned. The Most High demonstrated Ahavah in that he wants to do more for us than he wants us to do for him. Then there's a word not rendered in scripture as love, but I have found it to render as love in biblical literature, and that is the word Hiybah, which is related to the word Ahavah and literally means an obligation. Sometimes love someone simply because we are obligated to? How many do we love because we're obligated? How many when we went to the church is like, well, I love you, but soon as I turn around, I talk behind your back? Huh? Oh, I know we're familiar with that. I come from the same vein you came from. That means our love was based on conditions. See, he serves agape love. That means he has no condition. He loves us in our worst condition. But yet instead, we want to place conditions on each other. The devil is a lie. The issue then comes down to whether we want to do more for him than he wants to do for us. Far too often, we return his Ahavah with Hiybah, an obligation. Torah translation will not even render Hiybah as love, and rightly so. Loving out of obligation is not love at all. Hiybah can only result is an incomplete love. Do we give tithes or our offering out of Ahavah or Hiybah? Do we attend the assembly out of Ahavah or Hiybah? Do we study the word of the Most High out of Ahavah or Hiybah? We say we love the Most High, but is Ahavah or Hiybah? That is the question. Broken puzzle. Yasharel, it is not complete until all the pieces are on the table. That means until we get it together, we don't have to worry about seeing heaven. Because if you don't see it here on earth, if you don't make heaven on earth, you will not go with the Most High. Because he said he's going to complete the puzzle with or without you. You have to make the decision. Are you fitting your pieces with us? Or are you fitting your pieces with the world? But one way or another, his puzzle will be complete. And last, by his stripes, I'm healed, no longer broken. I yield.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Wow. That was fantastic.
Beautiful job.
Powerful. That was awesome.
Our D'Anthony, excellent job. Appreciate you. Excellent job. Let's see. Before we keep going, I'm gonna stop this recording.